Hello, and welcome to setting up DasLight from scratch. Let's just say we have a very simple stage. We have a handful of smoothers. I've imported all of the profiles. If you don't have the profiles, you can ask for them or they can be provided to you. Well, let's just use Texane's spot mover. So we're going to put a few movers in on universe 1. So there's 1, there's 2, there's 3, and there's 4. Alright, we have 4 lights. One starting at 1, 14, 27, and 40. So Universe 1, Channel 1, Universe 1, Channel 14, Universe 1, Channel 27, and Universe 1, Channel 40. We have 4 lights. Now we're going to take those 4 lights and we're going to come into DAS. And in normal DAS setup, you're going to have one scene and one block in that grouping. So I'm just going to delete everything. Have nothing. So we're going to create a new one, and we're going to start off with color. So we're going to set all 4 of these, and we're going to say we want it to be color white, because white's a good starting path. And we'll rename this one to white. And I like minimizing these to make them small. Next one, we're going to add dimmer banks to it. And the reason we're breaking out color and dimmer is so we can move about options. So we're just calling these dimmers. Alright, so we're going to call that. And then this one, we'll select all of these again, go to our dimmer, and we'll turn all of them on to white. So now when we hit white and we hit dimmer, we now have a white static light. All 4 of them are on. Then we want to add motion. So we're going to add some motion. And let's say we want these lights to move around a bit. So we select all 4 of these lights. We're going to go over here to move effect and we'll add a move effect. So now we hit the play button on the move effect and you'll see that the DasLight, the blade underneath this video is starting to move the 4 lights. And you can actually play this video, particularly in a VR chat world, to get an understanding on what's going on. That's why I formatted the video the way that I did. So now, let's just say we want to offset this. These are all ugly and they're all moving in the wrong space. So the first thing we need to do is, let's do this. Let's create a new one. But we're going to call this one zeroed out. We're going to zero it out. So we'll call it 0 and we'll put it on top and we'll click it. Then we'll hit edit. And then we're going to zero it out. So we click on that button. Center beams. What center beams does, and as you can see, all 4 lights have gone straight up or down depending on wherever your world's at. It zeroed them out. So it would zero them out. If I were to undo that, so there's undo. If I hit this, bam, it's pan and tilt right in the center. So now we have a 0. So if we go over here, now we can see that zeroed out is a little bit cleaner. And 0 is more of just a tactile thing. You don't always have to do that. You just can zero it out before you even start your project. But having a 0 is good so you can bring the project to 0. So now we have a sign, a simple little circle. So let's just say we want these to look a little better. So they all look identical. So if we come over here to phasing, we can actually spread our phase out on that circle. And now we have 4 lights that are a little offset. And if you look at the grid now, the data is a little bit more off. Let's say we want to add a sequence to this. So we're going to add another dimmer here. And we'll come down here to this scene. And the light's turned off. Why is that? Well, let's add a mapping to it. Because mappings are really cool. So we're going to select all 4 lights. Okay, then we're going to hit the FX button. Bam. And then we're going to come over here to dimmer. Bam. So now we have our dimmers in rolling fade here. So what we'll do is we'll remove the gradient because we'll have a little bit more stark lighting. And you know what? I want them to look really cool. So we'll do vertical symmetry. And we'll also throw a little angle on them. But you know what? It's just doing its own thing, and it's not really following the BPM of the scene. So we're going to come up here to the pencil, or actually go one above the little play icon here, and we're going to come down here to driving mode and go to BPM, and we'll set the BPM to like 4. Okay, and then when we get our BPM, and we set it by clicking this button, we'll start seeing the lights moving to that BPM. And in fact, we even quarter it even more. And you can see that they're now moving at 144 BPM. Blink, 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 blink. That's a good way for this type of scene. So now we're back into pencil mode and we have our mappings. Another good one is to set up steps. Steps give you a little bit more power and control over things. So we'll add another scene. So this one is just on. So for the sake of continuity here, on. Call this one a map, and we'll call this one step. So we click on this one and we click on steps. So to modify steps, we need to first turn off the play icon, and we're on the first step with 1 second wait time and no fade out. So we want this light, and hold Control and select this light. Then we add our dim to that, bam. Then let's go to another step. We copy that step, and now we take those two lights down, off. We click over here, and then we'll hold Control and click on this one, and we slide this one up. Now we have two steps. So if we go like this, it rolls on step. And even then, you can hit the play icon, you can bring it down to BPMs, we can quarter it down to 2, and it's going off 144 beats. And it's also moving around. Alright, let's say you got an APC Mini. You added a plug-in unit. You want to be able to do things, so let's do this. Let's go to 0 and on, make things simple. We'll come over here, and we're going to put these two stage lights on this side and these two stage lights on this side. But we don't really want to dick with symmetry too much, so one cool thing that you can do is you can select these two or these two, whichever one, and you can invert the pan. And by doing so, they will be mirrored on each other as pan accesses, which is great for symmetry. So if I would then now take those four and we'll hit new scene on motion, which is our rotational thing, you'll notice in world that they are now inverted to each other. But let's do this. Let's go back into setup, and we're going to create a new grouping. So we say we select these two, and we'll say create new group from this, and we'll label this one to left. And we'll select these two and create a new group from these to right. Why did we do that? What does that do? Well, we'll go back into control now. Now you have two extra groupings. So if you did two left and you strobe them, just those two. Two right, it's just those two. Now all of them together, all four of them. So now we're going to be able to block these out. Let's add another thing here. We'll come here to color, just so we can see things a little bit more vibrant. We'll click on this. We'll call this rainbow. And we'll click on it, and we'll come over here to color effects and just add that. But what happened here is I didn't have all of them selected, so I need to remove this. Select all four, now add the color. There we are. These are applied to who is selected down here. It's very important that you understand that. So now that we have our color fade here, we understand that we can do all strobes, we can do strobe on those, strobe on those. We can do all bright, all full max. Like if we did our mapping here, we will find there's the mapping, but if we did full bright, it would go all the way. It would go all white. So let's go to MIDI now. So in MIDI, you click on the three dots, you go into settings, and you have your MIDI control devices. And if you plug in your MIDI controller, it will show up in here and it will be allowed to run. Once that's done, you click on this little MIDI button here, and you click on the slider you want to connect the slider to, a button you want to connect the button to, and you just click it, bam. And then you press the MIDI key associated with that. However, if you don't have a MIDI controller and you'd like to map it to something else, you can also map it to the keyboard. So if I click on the keyboard, and if I want to bind this to the number 1, I hit 1. And if I bond this to the number 2, I hit 2. And now we can go 1, 2, 1, 2. Keep in mind too that there are toggles by default, so if you come back in here on the keyboard and you're like, alright, I want 1, but I want it to be a flasher, and I want 2, and I want it to be a flasher. That way when I push the button, it only click, 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 and the difference between that is no flash, no flash. I go click, 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 it's toggled. So that gives you kind of a very basic and rough introduction into DAS. We can get more into the weeds, but that basically breaks down how you associate and assign things. So good luck.